Thank you, Yashwendra, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this summit. Myself, I'm Sudarshan Sivaperumal. I'm a solution architect for APCJ from FI Networks. So what we are going to talk in this session is about rethinking cybersecurity strategy. Currently, all of us in the last 2 months have been under this complete lockdown. And one of the things that has happened is it's actually kind of hit the digital transformation paths of different organizations, right? Many organizations were in different stages of digital transformation, and COVID-19 kind of gave real boost to many of them and had to rethink the cyber security strategy and overall the IT strategy for many organizations. And some of the basic, and when it comes to cybersecurity, some of the basic BCP assumptions that we had itself was challenged. For example, the primary assumption was that if there is a office or one of the city of ours would close down, we would expect that we would have another alternate location from where we would actually continue our business. But with this COVID lockdown, with the complete country lockdown, no one expected that even the alternate location would not be available to do the business as usual. Also, some of the other challenges that we faced were the physical security, the support, physical security infrastructure, where we were using the traditional security controls, which were very hardware based. When we wanted to expand the unavailability of those during this challenging periods. So we are currently right away in a crossway where we are kind of rethinking the cybersecurity strategy, and that's what I'm going to talk in the next few minutes and some inputs that the CISOs can take away from this session. So before I get started, who are we? Who is F5 out there? So F5 is an application services company. We are headquartered in US, and we are close to 6,000 plus employees with global offices. In India, we are around 500 plus employees with an R&D center, the first of it outside of US in India. And what we do is very simple. We help deliver application services to your customers. And the three pillars, which is availability, security, and the accelerated delivery of these applications is what we are into and we excel at. Applications are the capital of any digital economy today. And that is what helps us do our business with our customers. And these applications are constantly under attacks. They are under infrastructure attacks like denial of service attacks and so on. They are under application attacks, which is typically the injection attacks, the cross-site scriptings and so on. They are under different access attacks, whereas there is credential theft and hijacking of the accounts or account takeovers and so on. And there are very sophisticated attacks, which is with the malicious malwares or to attacking the applications. I want to give 9 different strategies, and the first one is I wanted to start with what's the relevance with COVID-19. Is many of our expanded our remote workforce, right? A lot of remote working and remote workforce, and many of the organizations, and you would have seen the news where very large organizations have said that this is the way forward for them, where majority of their workforce will now be remote in nature. And that brings in a lot of challenges, right? That means now employees are going to access from any device, anytime, anywhere. And challenges that brings in is that really my employee who is working remotely? Is he actually using a corporate asset or his personal asset? What happens to the data that is being accessed to by him or her, and so on? And what is, am I compromising my corporate assets, which are my application services, by allowing remote access, whereby if I do a VPN, what if there are malwares that come in from a compromised endpoint into my environment? So these are the some of the concerns that many of the CISOs have talked to us. Many of us have started talking, and these was more conceptual ideas of zero trust. that were actually on the drawing boards and now has actually taken shape thanks to COVID-19 for accelerating this. So the whole idea is that we don't want to trust the user, the device that they have, but we want to start protecting our application services that is exposed to these to our remote workforce, which could be our employees, contractors, and our customers as well. How can F5 help? So F5 is a very rich, comprehensive identity-aware proxy, whereby it looks at every request that comes in to the application service and could do multiple checks on from the endpoint all the way up to the user to the security posture of that device, and then take a call whether that request has to go or should hit the application service or not. And this is a continuous manner. So not just and then it can look at the authorization part of it, like is Sudarshan, can he do a particular request or a transaction on that particular application to all that level, which we call as a per request access policy, where every request, even after I'm authenticated to the application, every request is looked up, validated, and then sent to the application. And someone changes any of these, maybe a device, maybe their location, maybe their security posture, and so on, and then the access could be denied. So this is where F5 could actually help you. And again, zero trust is a big word. It spans right from the physical layer all the way up to the application services. And F5 is the one that can help you on the application services front as a very comprehensive identity-aware proxy. The next thing that we would have seen is with the remote workforce, the second challenge is account takeovers, whereby credentials, there are a lot of stolen credentials in the out there in the dark web. And plus, there are these new malwares that take advantage of the situation of workforce and try to steal the credentials from the users. And financial industry is one of the most hit. This is where F5 strategy that you should look at is one of them is credential encryption. How can you actually encrypt the credentials over an HTTPS transaction as well? Because the credentials are available in clear text in the browser, and man in the browser kind of malwares can actually steal them from the browsers. How you can protect your applications against brute force attacks or credential stuffing attacks and so on. So that's something that you can look at. And how F5 can help you is we have a feature which is called Data Safe that can protect the credentials from being stolen from a man in the browser malwares. The comprehensive WAF solution of F5 looks at detecting and mitigating brute force attacks, protecting against any credential stuffing, where we can look up at databases like Blackfish, which is a Shape Security, a company that we acquired. That has stolen credential database sourced from multiple dark webs and so on, close to around 16 billion plus credentials out there. So we can look up for any stolen credentials and password reset, new account creations and password resets and so on. We can mask credentials that are sent across to logs and other things. With Shape, we can now detect if there is any automated attacks on the login page of a particular application service, and if there is any human palms which are working behind to actually do any automated transactions. The third strategy is many organizations are moving towards a microservices architecture, and there is a lot of east-west traffic that happens between the application services. The traditional model of putting a web application firewall, which was mainly for the north-south traffic, now we want to secure the east-west traffic, and we want the solution also to be a containerized format that can sit within this microservices. And that's where Nginx, another company that F5 acquired last year, we bought our web application firewall technology and ported it on top of Nginx Plus, and called the solution as Nginx App Protect. So that's F5 WAF on top of Nginx, and we could do both the reverse proxy as well as a sidecar implementation with this. So now we can protect the as an ingress controller into the microservices architecture, as well as we can protect against the east-west traffic as a sidecar proxy as well. Visibility and analytics that is available with this solution. The fourth one is securing APIs. Now, APIs is kind of becoming the building block for any modern application, and there are APIs which are exposed to developers, business partners, internal developers, third parties, and so on. And we want to protect this APIs. And very recently, in 2000, last year, OWASP released API top 10 security concerns, and F5 can help you protect against these as from anything from content validation to the methods to the APIs that is exposed, rate limiting of the APIs, and so on. The fifth one is automated threat. So we are seeing a growing number of automated threats to the web applications against OWASP released OWASP OAT, which is around automated threats to the application. There are 21 of them. And they could be anything from account takeovers, because many of these attacks to the applications are all done in an automated fashion. There is obviously some human, but for achieving scale, it's always automated in nature. And that's where F5, along with Shape Security, we can help protect the applications from automated transactions. Shapes looks at very specifically around automated transaction, human farms behind it, exploiting the business transactions, and F5 WAF can actually be the one that can protect. And that's where F5 and Shape together can help secure your organization from web attacks and from highly sophisticated automated attacks. The sixth one, which is like when we go for remote access or for exposing our applications, we're pretty sure that 100% of the traffic is going to be encrypted out there. So many of these security services, they become what we call as SSL blind, that they cannot get the visibility into the payload and hence become ineffective in our environment. So that's where F5 can come in and can help provide the visibility. The other option is where you could actually enable visibility on each of the security service, but that leads to a lot of problem. One of them is the basic fundamental thing of securing your private key. And if you start decrypting at every point, then we hit a problem which is called as the key proliferation in the cipher book. So that's where F5 can simplify that. We have a solution which is called as the SSL orchestrator that can take traffic which is into your environment and can decrypt the traffic. And based on which particular application it is, can intelligently send that to that particular service. For example, if it is a web traffic, it can send it to the web application firewall. If it is a non-web traffic, it could send to the IPS solution to look into it, or an APT solution to look into it. If it's an outbound traffic that is going out from your organization to the internet, it could be sent to the forward proxy and the anti-APT solutions and so on. So it could intelligently look at the traffic and then orchestrate it to the right security service. The seventh is again protecting against denial of service. So I will always use this frame. It is not a matter of if you have been under a DDoS attack. It's just a matter of when you will be if you have not been under a DDoS attack. And a typical reference architecture is what we suggest to look at in your long-term cybersecurity strategy. It's actually 3 tiers. Tier 1 is actually the cloud, which is actually sitting outside your data center, which could to protect you against a volumetric DDoS attack. Tier 2, which is at the perimeter, which takes care of the network DDoS attacks, which is like flood attacks and other network DDoS attacks. And then the third layer, which is sitting closer to your application, which looks at the application layer, which is like the L7 DDoS attacks that happen to your applications. And F5 can help you as a solution which is comprehensive. We have all the 3 components that fit into this reference architecture. For India, very specifically, we opened a regional POP based in India because a lot of our customers had this data privacy concerns and wanted the traffic to be decrypted in the country. And that's where we have opened up a regional POP in India. The 8th is to see how look at futuristic way where majority of you have actually adopted DevOps. And now we should look at bringing in our strategy to bring in security into the DevOps, which is what we call as the DevSecOps, right? So the whole idea is how security can be embedded into the CI/CD pipeline, and how in the agile methodology, security gets embedded in publishing those applications, that frequent updates that you do into your applications, how security can be. And this is something where we have got our WAF to be really embedded into the security into the DevOps architecture. In a nutshell, it's like where the SecOps team builds the policies for the specific application. NetOps looks at the infra part of where that application is to be deployed. And when an application owner wants to deploy a particular application, or maybe a subset of the application, or a new service, or an update to the service, they can actually call this template, which can be either as a JSON call that could be made to the F5 controller, and that pushes out the configuration for that particular application into the F5, and then the application owner gets a visibility of what's happening to their environment. And finally, and the last one is the consumption model, right? COVID again kind of hit us, saying that, hey, we could not have this model of perpetual licenses where when I need something, I need to go raise a PO to a vendor and take it and so on. But it should be very flexible in consumption. And that's where F5 has this. And since last year, we've launched this ELA, where F5 services can be consumed as needed, right? So you could get into an ELA agreement with F5, consume a web application firewall service, consume the access, the identity-aware proxy of F5, consume the DDoS solution of F5. As and when you build your application services, you can actually consume this without having to wait, raise a PO, and so on and so forth. And we've also launched cloud services, which is like you can go into F5 cloud services right now, swipe a credit card, launch a web application firewall on the cloud, and consume it without even contacting an F5 salesperson. So we made security as easy as possible for our customers to consume. With that, I want to conclude that when you look at the cybersecurity strategy going forward, the traditional network-centric strategy, unfortunately in India, still the network budget or network security budget for any organization is very high. So you need to relook at the network-centric, traditional network-centric security strategy and shift your cybersecurity strategy more towards the application services that need to be protected, because that's your crown jewels, and that's going to be spread across in a public cloud, in your data center, in your private cloud, in your business partner environment, and so on. So look at the application-centric strategy and some of the 9 points that we discussed to look into how you can secure your applications. So with that, I conclude. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. F5 team is at the booth. Please take out time and do visit us and to talk about any of the security strategies that we talked about, or any of the F5 solutions. And we will be glad to help you and be part of your cybersecurity strategy. Thank you very much.